Aloha. It's Wednesday, it's 11 o'clock. It's February the 24th, 2021. I'm Tim Apicella, the host for What Now America. Welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce my guests immediately, and that is Jay Fidell, Stephanie Dalton, and Winston Welch. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
The title of this show is Biden honors 500,000 COVID deaths. And going to you, Jay, you know, it was almost a year to the day that you and I did a show called Is Coronavirus a Hoax? And we got probably now over 200 comments about that show. I would say a majority of those comments stated that, yes, it's a hoax. You guys are trying to pump up something that's not real. You're trying to throw the election for Donald Trump under the bus, and it's all a Democratic hoax. In fact, Donald Trump said that about 2 days before we did that show. And not only did he say it was a Democratic hoax, but he also said that it's tamped down, it's going to go away. And so that was the precursor to us doing that show. I was in Seattle. Seattle had the first 8 deaths in the city of Kirkland, just across from Seattle, across Lake Washington at the nursing home. I think LA had 1 death registered. And that was the beginning of where we are today. And 500,000 deaths are recorded. Actually, now it's, I think, 503,000. The point is, Jay, how did we get here? And I think before I ask that question any further is, remember Donald Trump's interview with Bob Woodward. Donald Trump knew the nature of this virus. He knew how deadly it was. And he also commented on how easily it was transmitted. So having known that, why did Donald Trump treat coronavirus the way that he did?
2 factors. One is he's a bad manager. You know, what's her name? Mary Trump told us that in her book and in many interviews. He doesn't know how to manage. He's not grown up enough. So he was incompetent in terms of managing it. But the other part of it is everything that he does or doesn't do is directed at retaining power. And what he did is he was hoping that it would go away. He really wanted it to go away. He didn't know how to make it go away. And his luck ran out because it didn't go away. And by the time we got to election day, it was clear to more people that it had not gone away, and it worked against him. I find it remarkable, however, that there are so many people in the country that still follow that hoax thing. It's a hoax. They don't believe it. They think the numbers are wrong. They think that there's a lot of misinformation on news, mostly the left-leaning news, for the proposition that these people are dying when that's really not true. But it's really remarkable too that all of us have been watching the news, and we have been seeing this really strange syncopation for a year now, where the Trump factions are saying, no, there really isn't a coronavirus. And many people still believe that, incredibly so. And then you see people dying, and you see doctors in hospital crying with nurses, and horrible tragedies happening. So it's interesting how there's an alternative universe of truth out there. And he has created, he believes, and a lot of people agree with him, that you don't have to have truth to have a world. You can have lies. You can live in a world of lies. For example, QAnon. You can live in a world of lies and enjoy it. What I thought interesting about Biden's, funeral and his memorial for the 500,000 was that it reminds us, and reminds even the Trump people, that these people died, that this is an extraordinary number. Just one point more, and that is that you remember, don't you, that here on this show, and your show, Tim, we got into this question of if we started counting just by the numbers, the number of people who had died already by that time. And at that time, it was like 20,000 when we started, inquiring into this possibility. It would have taken weeks, 24/7 weeks, just to reach the number of people who have died already. Well, now 500,000, and it's still climbing. It's 505,000 already. Now it would take months, years even, if you started counting right now, to the exclusion of all other things in your life, meals, sleep, whatnot. it would take months to count to 500,000. It's enormous, and I don't think people understand. Therefore, Biden's notion of a memorial was very valuable to demonstrate Trump had done nothing, didn't care, and to demonstrate people didn't really understand what a fantastic tragedy this is.
I think those are very good points, and I think you're right. It's a number that people still can't get their arms around. I think that's one of the reasons why President Biden had to coat these terms in the fact that this is more deaths than World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War, because people just can't understand 500,000 people in this country that have perished. So, okay, well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate your comments here. Hey, Winston, 20 years from now, maybe even sooner, many history books will be written. How's Donald Trump going to be portrayed in those history books as to what his role is? You know, you listen to a lot of Republicans and they say it's not fair to assign blame for all these deaths to Donald Trump. It was a virus. He did what he could to block it from coming into the United States from China, and they'll even say that he blocked it coming in from Europe, which of course he didn't do properly. So who's right? Is it the fact that he owns these 500,000 deaths, or is there a number in between? Or do you agree with the Republicans that none of this should be assigned to his blame because it was a virus and he did what he could?
I don't think either of those. So the truth lies in between. Obviously, this is a virus. It's a human virus. It started in China, probably. We'll find out as things go by. But as soon as I saw that coming out, immediately I thought of SARS and Ebola and other things, and how these things are spread. And I realized it's coming no matter what we do. However, we could have done and anticipated this a lot better, like not dismantling Obama's task force on emerging viruses and that sort of thing, and making sure that our states have robust supplies of everything that they needed, from PPE to the machines. At the very beginning, we saw a lot of bungling because there was a perception it was a political thing. It wasn't a political thing. It was a real thing. It was a human disease that was quickly overtaking the nation. I think Italy shocked everyone when you had people in northern Italy just suddenly dying by the hundreds and just instantly. And so that kind of freaked out everyone. And then we still have COVID deniers that this thing doesn't exist, as Jay was saying, which is, it's hard to believe at this point still, but it's out there. And maybe people view it, maybe it's a conspiracy, maybe it's a Chinese conspiracy Democrat. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's just real. It's a virus. We need to protect ourselves from it. And we had an epic failure of leadership from the top. We had hollowed out agencies that couldn't respond. And then in many ways, when they did respond, they were politicized. So I think as we look back in 20 years from now, well, we'll see who's writing the books, won't we? I mean, that's who ultimately there. And Stephanie's probably better able to, to look at that and see how we treat failures of our own in American history. But I think right now we can say we have a competent administration that's tackling this head on, that was addressed by our president, who held a ceremony for 500,000 Americans dead. Now, when you said about Vietnam, Korea, World War II, the combat deaths that were in all of those, we've surpassed that now, but not in a period of, those wars were over years. This is a period of a year, and a fifth of them in the last month. This is not going away. It's not going away anytime soon. We may have Corona part 2, and it seems like it's just going to be with us the rest of our lives. So it's going to require a concerted attempt to strengthen all of our agencies, our abilities to respond to this at state levels, at local levels, at federal level, at the international level. And I think that's where we're seeing the leadership emerging now. So as far as who's going to write history, well, we're living it right now, and I'm not worried so much about 20 years from now as I am about 20 days from now or 20 months from now. So yeah, I'm just happy to see who we've got in charge now and what we're doing with that. But we, again, need to remain personally vigilant as best as we can. get the damn shots. I mean, if it's some conspiracy to kill everyone or make us buy Microsoft products, okay, so suddenly have a desire to use Office or Word. Okay, if that lets me survive, I don't think I'm getting infected with the nanoprobe that's making me do that. Or if we are, then we're all going to go anyway. So we won't know, but we certainly know that this virus is deadly. It's a terrible death, and 500,000 of our fellow country men and women have died because of it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to point something out that I think has to be thrown in the mix, and that is he affirmatively told people not to wear masks. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't take any steps that the CDC had recommended at the critical moment in the spring of 2020. And I would attribute an enormous number of deaths to that. He was creating in his rallies, he was creating super spreaders all year long. What I'm saying is it's not just a matter that he backed off and mismanaged. It's not just a matter that he denied. He affirmatively sent messages, dog whistles out to all of his base, 74 million people, don't wear a mask. That has to be responsible for an enormous number of
Well,
deaths.
that's a good point, Jay, because I agree. He created an environment where the virus took off like wildfire, and that was at his super rallies. There's just no two ways about it. So again, as far as accountability, Donald Trump, the Teflon Don, he gets a pass. But we'll see what the history books say, because I couldn't agree with you more. Those super rallies were nothing more than spreader events. In fact, he lost people there. He lost Herman Cain. I mean, good God. I mean, I'm sure Herman Cain didn't really want to attend, and certainly didn't want to attend without a mask on, given his previous health condition. So what do you say about people who are willing to sacrifice their lives in order not to displease Donald Trump? It happens all over, and it's happened for 4 years. And I'm with Winston. Thank God we have a sane president that doesn't expect that kind of loyalty where you sacrifice your life or potentially put your life at risk just so you won't displease the great Donald. And if I look at 500,000, 505,000, I think, who's responsible for this? How did this happen? Going to you, Stephanie. I mean, we listened to Dr. Fauci, and not soon after the new administration came into play, he talked openly about how he was not allowed to come on certain talk shows, particularly on MSNBC, and talk about the truth about the nature of where we're at versus what the administration was saying about the virus. And what do you say about someone who's not allowed to talk about the truth about a deadly disease? And I can't speak for Dr. Bricks, but we're seeing now echoes coming out of what the truth really was about how the virus was shuttered away so that the stock market wouldn't take a hit, so that voters wouldn't be panicked, so voters would just continue as is and hopefully vote for Donald Trump. But that didn't happen. Jay's right. Donald Trump ran out of luck. He ran out of time. Your thoughts about what's emerged since the election of Joe Biden and the nature of the virus?
Well, what's emerged is a little complicated because of the insertion of the impeachment trial at the very outset of his election. But when I see that presentation the other night, when I saw it, what was it, last night? Anyway, all I could think of was that same place when Donald Trump came back from the hospital and ran around down there and then jumped up the stairs and ran up and took off his mask. And I was going back to thinking about your previous comments, that there he was, establishing the masklessness macho. That's where you got to go, as if that had anything to do with healing, but rather, of course, with dying. But again, all of those pictures of Biden, you can show him performing and presenting one way, and then run the tape of what this other man had done. And I think maybe that needs to get done, because I'm a little bit appalled that people are not yet or questioning whether this unity thing has any legs at all. I mean, we would like to see him get to the unity thing. And I'm thinking, why is Biden not already being given credit for that? What has he done? He steered clear of the impeachment trial. He steered clear of the 1-6 fray. And he reached out to the Republicans for the legislation on COVID, and he's honored the COVID victims. And he is just not doing anything but moves that, in my opinion, are towards peace and unity.
Okay, well, let me jump in, because two words come to my mind: tribal politics. Are we so far polarized that it doesn't matter how Joe Biden tries to unify Americans and the political parties to consensus or even compromise? Is it too far gone? Are we too far polarized? And whether it becomes to the recognition of 500,000 deaths with COVID, and how as Americans we should at least unite to recognize the catastrophic, horrific loss of Americans, or is that too far gone?
I think that it's way far gone. Probably can't say too far, or but I think that we just don't know enough about the powers of influence that someone like Biden and his presentation may have, because we're so used to this heavy onslaught. Let's go to war over it, or let's bash your head in before we do anything else. Whereas I see Biden as presenting more modeling and trying to reinforce the directions that he sees that he can go, and trying to make those as big as he can. Like, it looks like the legislation isn't going to have a lot.
Hey, a question just came in from a viewer, and we appreciate all questions that come in, whether you agree with our position or not. We like to see them, because we like to think that this is a show that's worthy of critical comments, and this is one of them. Well, this particular question isn't one of them, but Johnson & Johnson just received approval. How will that be a game changer for vaccination process and hopefully tamping down this variant virus now that's in the country versus the old virus? And do you think this makes a difference in the game plan, Stephanie?
Oh, absolutely, because of the one shot, and they're going to be able to get at the nooks and crannies in our country. Like, how are they getting into West Virginia and back in those valleys? I mean, there's Senator Manchin, has this tremendously poor, that's where white poverty is. That is just an amazing situation that he doesn't really attend to or make clear. But anyway, this one shot will allow picking up your bag and going to the Indian reservation and making sure that all those people are taken care of. It's exhilaratingly potentially getting us to heal and to get rid of this virus and tamp it back.
Okay, thank you.
Unless it should go up on the stock market, the Johnson & Johnson, if you've got the stock. This should help a lot. But in every way, so the economy, these Republicans keep saying we don't have any money and don't have any money, but all of this new industry coming into
they don't have money when it's a new administration. They got plenty of money when they're in power. That's what I've noticed over the 3 decades of politics.
Yeah, and the byproducts of all this vaccination crisis, that they're going to have to get into the nooks and crannies of the country and the outlier places, and they're going to have new equipment. So this is like a trip to the moon. It's going to spawn suitcases that refrigerate, all kinds of things. Products. Come on, it's going to be.
Well, we're in a race. We're in a race between vaccination and the virus. It's a race in time, because everyone needs to be able to make sure that they can block the variant virus, but also not spread it along. So that's a crucial race this country, at least, and the world's in, I think. We're there. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Hey, Jane, switching topics here a bit. We were talking about how the Johnson & Johnson's a game changer. What about the Supreme Court and the fact that they're going to allow the Southern District of New York, specifically Cyrus Vance, to have a peekie at Donald Trump's tax returns from, I believe, 2011 up to, I think, 2018.
Yeah, if Trump thought he could rely on his 3 appointments to the Supreme Court, he was wrong. But this is a clear case. They've handled this kind of thing from him before, and they've made it clear how they feel, and he's lost before on the disclosure of documents in litigation. But he'll do anything, and he will continue to do anything to stop the litigation against him. What this does, though, is it accentuates one of the big vectors that is going on now. Last week, you asked me, how do I feel about all this? And at first I told you I'd get back to you about it. And I've been thinking about it all week, what are the vectors in play here? And, which way is it going to go? And I really don't think we know which way. I think we're, talk about crisis. We're in a political crisis, and it's not clear which way it's going to go. It's not clear that the country will, in fact, survive as a democratic republic. But the vectors in play include the reliability of the courts to do the right thing. Therefore, there's a lot of litigation coming up against him, civil litigation and apparently criminal litigation. And, he's going to be festooned with lawsuits. And it's a very important vector because ultimately, I think the base is not going to be impressed. Ultimately, the fact that he's off Twitter is another vector. And the fact that he's fighting with McConnell, that's another vector. And it's hard to say how these things are going to work out because he's going to try really hard to deal with each one of them in the next 2 years in the hopes of achieving his Trump party or his Trump Republican Party, the case may be in 2022. But to go to your question, the thing about the Supreme Court opens up a huge floodgate for him, against him. And it will facilitate all kinds of litigation and really bad press.
Now,
So
we won't be able to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
although some people won't believe it, they'll think, A, the Supreme Court was wrong. They'll think every court rules against Trump is wrong. The reality is it's going to take a toll on him. It's going to cost him a lot of money. I don't know where he's going to get that from, except raiding other funds that he should not raid, or speaking to his base and have them contribute hundreds of millions so he can defend all these cases. But the bottom line is, talk about distractions, talk about burdens. He's going to have the burden of civil and criminal litigation. And for me, I keep seeing him in a jumpsuit. I'm waiting for that moment to arrive. Champagne to everyone. Champagne for the House on a jumpsuit.
Well, as they said in one of the comedy shows at late night TV, the orange is the new orange.
Right.
This ties into a question that we just received, and throughout the part of the years we've learned again and again of the criminal and anti-constitutional actions from Trump. Where are the enforcers? Where have the enforcers been?
Yeah, really good question, but he's neutralized them is the problem. He's neutralized all of government. You used the term a minute ago about hollowed out. He's hollowed out the government, every department, and he's made himself the player, the commander of that department. And he's intimidated people, he's fired people, he's screwed up the federal government to a fairly well. Thank God there are still people in the Department of Justice who are straight. And they are, going after the insurrectionists. They will follow whatever Merrick Garland wants to do, knock wood, and we will have some justice from them. But a lot of them have been dormant because they've been intimidated. And I'm really sad to see that we have been dysfunctional in that regard. And by the way, kissing cousin to that issue is how has the press been doing? We know that MSNBC and CNN and maybe a couple of others, report it straight. They tell the story as it is. We know the Times has lots of opinions, over the years, and the Washington Post, possibly others, but not regional papers, not local papers. And certainly radio is, you only have a white public radio that tells it half straight. And so what happens here, I think, is the press has been not as aggressive as they might have been in dealing with his crimes. And I hope now all of that can come out liberated.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Tag teaming on that, Winston, does Donald Trump serve time in the future? And if so, if that were to happen, what does that do to a good half of our voting population that believes Donald Trump could do no wrong, that Donald Trump is innocent of everything, that Donald Trump has been subject to the Democratic witch hunt from day one? If he were to be convicted and forced to serve time, where does that put the country?
Well, I think that Jay is going to save a lot of money because there's not going to be champagne on the house for everybody. It's not going to happen. There will be trials. He will be found guilty. He may be but nothing's going to happen. We don't put presidents in prison. Donald Trump has been a wonderful teacher for this nation to show us how frail and fragile and delicate our system is. And we now have a roadmap, a reverse roadmap of what we need to do to shore things up. He may be a kingpin maker or a kingmaker for the next couple years or even longer. I don't know. After all this stuff comes out, his base will dismiss it as fake news, as the witch hunt, just like you said. But never forget, the American public is a fairly shallow people. We vote and with short memories. We don't even remember that Texas was without power last week. That's still going on. But someone like a Hawley or a Haley, Nikki Haley or Josh Hawley, or someone who's good looking, smart, and can actually really manipulate the system and isn't lazy, that's where the real concern comes in. As the GOP splits into pieces, and maybe it won't. I mean, maybe there will be such egregious information that comes out, but it will be dismissed anyway. So when you have, the ex RNC chair, Michael, what was Michael's last name?
Deal.
Yes, thank
Steele.
you. Says, he says, there's the door if you want to leave the GOP. And, on the Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin says on the 22nd of February, sane Republicans need to leave the GOP. I'm not sure that.
Well, we'll see what happens at CPAC.
Yes, we will.
That's this weekend. Well,
I think
Donald Trump has already played his card on that. And I thank you, Winston. I'm going to go to Stephanie on this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
On this point is Donald Trump has already said, I am the GOP. There is no one but Donald Trump. And I suppose we'll see, illusions of grandeur to that point this weekend at CPAC. So Stephanie, is Donald Trump the new GOP or the damaged GOP? And do more rational heads, the old GOP, do they split off? Does Mitch McConnell split off?
Well, I think that the attendance at this conference has changed over the years with Trump going there. But that I think, and the other question I have is who's writing his speech? That would inform us a lot. But I mean, he's not got a chief of staff, but I don't know who's writing the speech for him. But it'll give us the information that will just reiterate or validate all that we know about, as Jay has mentioned, the lack of capacity and no insight, much less any foresight or perspicacity, ability to look forward and manage the field and do some things that could make him the kingpin or the kingmaker.
Right. Well, okay. So a big part of where Donald Trump is, and whoever's going to follow him at CPAC or beyond, is they have to sign off on Donald Trump's belief that the election was stolen, which we now call the big lie. So Matt Schlepp, who sponsors this CPAC event, could not admit that Donald Trump was lying about the election being stolen. He did admit that Joe Biden is president-elect and the president of the United States, but he could not articulate that Donald Trump is wrong about the election fraud and stolen election. Does everyone have to kowtow to that point of view for Donald Trump, the big lie?
Yeah, I think that looks like what it is now, but it seems to me that this 9/11 type investigation of 1/6 is going to get us someplace where there's evidence and common conclusions or acceptable conclusions. And I just sort of have the feeling that the tail of that dragon is going to come back on Hawley and Cruz and the other people involved in it, because slowly Trump is going to dissipate. And I mean, if he comes through with some kind of worthy speech or even informative, coherent presentation at this conference, I'll be really surprised. I think that it will be another light along the road that's going out, because he's not going to be able to.
Well, there's a lot more questions I want to ask you. There's a lot of more questions I want to ask you pertaining to this, but you know what? We've run out of time, so I have to go around for last comments. Jay, last comments for you.
Yeah, CPAC prediction. McConnell's going to be there, and theoretically there'll be two camps there. There'll be the McConnell camp. He's not going to relent on criticizing Trump, and the Trump camp. He's not going to relent on criticizing McConnell. But here's what I predict. Going to the kind of speech, the kind of speech writers, the kind of position. Trump doesn't like to put out a position, a platform. He doesn't like to do that. He likes to have just freedom to do what he decides at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I think what he's going to do is the same that he's done before. It's going to be a rally. It's going to be a Trump rally, and he is going to stock the House. He is going to call in his crowd, and he's going to have all these people, these Trumper people, and make it look like, he's the powerful one. McConnell is not, and he's going to make it into a really aggravated rally, and it's going to be disgusting. But it will be watershed. It will tell us about the future of the Republican Party. The other thing I want to mention is it comes out of this discussion, a number of us have mentioned it, and it's this. You're right. I think you said it, Tim. We forget from last week. We forget from what happened in the snowstorm in Texas. When I say we, I mean the country. And we're led around by, distractions and the news of the moment. And so it's very important that we have these conversations here. It's very important that all Americans remember what happened. It's not that hard to remember. You have to read the paper and you have to follow the news, but you have to remember so you can put it in perspective. If we don't do that, we are sunk. And I'm not optimistic anyway, but if we don't do that, I'm less optimistic.
Good point. I think Churchill said, and I'll paraphrase, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. Absolutely. Thank you, Jay. Last comments, Winston.
I'm glad to see Jay's getting a little bit more on the pessimistic side again, so I can redeem my optimism. But
you get that inside track, right?
I'm still buying champagne, baby.
Okay, well, there you go. I don't think that will happen, but it's true. We don't. It's the moment, and Donald Trump trained us to live by tweet, and so we don't remember what happened last week or yesterday. Plus, we've all got some COVID fatigue too. On top of all of it, we're all suffering from PTSD in this nation, frankly. There was a question that came in that we didn't get to. Some Texas people believe that the recent snowstorm was fake snow from the Chinese to cause COVID. How can we educate those who don't want to be educated? This is critical. When you present quotes, direct video in front of these folks saying, this is what was said, and they say, well, that wasn't true. That's not, oh, well, he didn't mean, whatever it is. We're not dealing with the same set of reality. I don't know when we get on the same page and we do have that shared reality again. If we get it, you ask that question, is it too far gone? I don't know. Maybe it just gets back to some sort of common denominator. I don't know. I'm not seeing it right now, but hopefully people have had enough fatigue over the last 4 years to say enough already. Let's have some sanity. Let's have a good, sane person who is a principled conservative represent these views that doesn't just make everybody scream or scream at each other. And that's my hope, is that we can find that person or those people to represent the party of principled conservatives that right now is gone or in complete disarray, depending on your optimistic point of view.
Okay, Winston, thank you. I'm going to just jump in on that comment. We have people like the young Representative Kissinger, I can't pronounce his last name, who has been taking it on the chin from family and friends. And he is one of those few Republicans that believe that the country comes first before his party, and that you're going to speak the truth and look at the facts before you just go on board with what someone tells you what to believe and what to say. So good point. Stephanie, your last comments before we conclude today.
Brief to quote Jay, I mean, of course, CPAC is going to be a Trump rally. So let's see how that goes. And whether those camps, realize themselves there and actually, tighten up. I mean, it could be very informative for what that tension is all about. And if it's got a lot of legs to go forward. Yeah. Okay. I just think that we have to realize it's like we're so much like the Henry VIII situation where you have the dictator and then people that believed these certain beliefs and not those and wouldn't change, and they would burn them at the stake. They would cut them up into pieces and they weren't changing their ideas. So this is why we've got to look to Biden's talents and what he thinks he can do in the way of influence and change from a whole different way of understanding it and offering it to the nation. So I think we've got a lot to learn from him, and we have got unity in our plan here. We're arcing towards you.
Thank you, Stephanie. We've run out of time. In fact, we went a little bit over. I want to thank Jay Fidell, Winston Welch, Stephanie Dalton. Thank you for joining us on What Now America. Look for us next Wednesday at 11 o'clock. I'm Tim Apicella, your host. We'll see you then. Aloha.